guys, welcome back to Preview Alliance. This is Sarah.
And Whitney.
Once again, we are so excited to have you. Today, we're going to talk about when you're trying to get pregnant, it's just not happening.
It's really defeating.
Infertility. It's trying to conceive, TTC, the new hashtags.
Yeah. Yep. Been on that journey, and I don't want anyone else to go on that.
I feel like there's this dream role that people kind of like, we grow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we try not to get pregnant for a very long time. And then when we meet someone,
and we feel like we're ready,
we're like, it should just happen.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, it doesn't just happen.
It doesn't.
But what you do here, I remember, so our journey a little bit, we got pregnant on our 1-year anniversary with our daughter Ava, who we lost at 13 weeks. Was not trying, so grieved that loss, which I'll talk more about that in our miscarriage episode. But so then we're like, okay, we're ready again.
Yeah.
Keep trying. Not happening. And it got in my head real quick.
Easily.
And I don't care what anybody says. Once you're trying, the act of trying becomes...
It's exhausting.
It becomes robotic. It becomes...
It's a task.
Forced.
Yeah, it's a task.
And it takes a lot of the...
love
and caring out of it.
Yeah.
Because I remember, too, when I used to ovulate, my husband would say, I would get to another level of just me. I'm like, isn't that opposite of what, it should be?
Yeah.
Like, should I be loving and kind?
Yeah.
But I wasn't. And I think it was because so much pressure. Like, this is my ovulation window.
Like, the whole purpose of sex at that point is for a baby.
Yeah. And it's just like, I just need the sperm to meet my egg.
Yep.
And he felt...
That's the goal.
Super used in those moments.
Yeah.
And... I was, unfortunately, I hate to say it that way, but
it is what it is.
It is what it is. But I remember a couple of my friends getting pregnant around that time.
Yeah.
They didn't know because I didn't share.
Yeah.
Because I think you inside don't really tell people.
No.
The first little bit, be like, you probably just think, okay, it can take 6 months to 9 months, right? People say a year, depending on your age.
Mm-hmm.
So in your head, you're like, okay, maybe it's this month.
Yeah.
Ovulated.
Yeah, exactly. We've done all the things.
I peed on the strips.
Mm-hmm.
I've laid with my legs up. I've tracked it. I've ate whatever Google's telling me to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And your period is fixing to happen. And I remember I used to get so anxious. And I had a period tracker, ovulate, and it'd be like 1 day to or a 2-day countdown.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, it's going to happen. And then every little twinge.
Can I just say, why do period symptoms have to be the same as early pregnancy symptoms?
Exact.
That is torture.
It's so torture. I would feel a cramp and I'd be like, that has to be implantation.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or
early spotting, you're like, that's it. That's the implantation bleeding.
And I would work myself up every month to a level.
It's exhausting.
Crash. I remember we were up in Boston and of it. And I could have, honestly, I think there was a couple of times I had super early miscarriages.
Oh.
Because it was my period was maybe 5 or 6 days late. I wasn't testing, positive, but I almost felt like it was, or I could just be making that up and making myself feel better about it. But I remember, it's going to happen. And I was in between checking in patients bathroom, and I had started my period. And when I say Whitney, I sobbed.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Then you see a lot of people that you're, why? I mean, this sounds so hateful for me to say. Why are they getting pregnant?
It doesn't feel fair when we have to really,
to
have a child, and other people, it seems.
Went through nursing school. I saw a lot of babies that drug mommies that they didn't want, or get, and everybody's each their own in their journey. And I was not in a good space to even see that mentally. So I took that very why me, God? Why is this so hard? We'll give a loving home.
we're qualified.
Yeah. Like, we can give
we
this
meet
child.
we meet all the criteria.
And at the end of the day, lonely.
Yeah.
And it's hard on your relationship.
Yes.
Because I felt like Bill was like, I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to support you.
Yeah.
I took it like there was something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Why is my body failing? It was a really dark time.
Yeah.
And there's a friend, and she announced, and I had shared with her my struggle.
Yeah.
And then she announced, and she didn't say it to me before she announced. And
that's hard.
It's not like I should not take that personal, but I did.
Yeah.
Because I felt, and it's hard when you're in that trying so hard and someone else is pregnant, because then I've been in the opposite.
Yeah.
Where I have got pregnant, especially with James, and I've known some of my friends that have been wanting that. Yeah. So then I felt awkward. So I get it. I get that. That's like a hard space.
It is.
So
it is a hard space.
What do you have for advice for these moms?
Well, for starters, been there, because I have my own infertility journey that we went through. And so what I would really encourage you to do, whether it is, somebody that you know in real life, or whether you find a community, whether there's a Facebook group or whether it's on the Glow app, I would really encourage you to be a part of an infertility or know that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Because infertility is not widely talked about as far as like interpersonal conversations. So, my family did not know we were going through infertility. And so that was part of it. Some of my friends knew because I had to, go for my monthly blood draws and all the things and that kind of stuff. So my coworkers knew, and I had some friends that I was close with that they were aware of it. But by and large, we didn't talk. Not like I would plaster it out on Facebook. Here's month 8 of trying to get pregnant and we're failing. Like, you're not going to see that very often.
Hard to pull on Instagram.
Yep.
Blasting their pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
I took a social media break, which I would suggest that for you guys too.
I agree.
If you're struggling. Now, there is some, and we're actually going to be hosting her in a couple weeks. Yeah. Lacey, there is some bloggers who are trying to be very transparent in their trying to conceive journey. But I think when me and you were getting pregnant our first times a couple years ago,
that was not really
that wasn't a
thing.
Mm-mm. So,
because let's see, Sydney is 5. So 6 years ago, I was pregnant with her. So 7 years ago is when I was trying to get pregnant with her. So really back in 2015, 2016.
They weren't talking about it.
It was not widely talked about. Luckily, one of my coworkers, I say luckily, that's not my intention. One of my other friends, my coworkers that I was very, very close to, she could get pregnant, but she couldn't stay pregnant. She experienced multiple. So she ended up having to do, infertility specialist and things of that nature. So I found a lot of comfort
in knowing someone.
And knowing somebody and being able to text her or have those breakdowns at work. And she's like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. This is a horrible journey to walk through.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to have somebody that validated me.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing I would encourage you. Your significant other, obviously, they do struggle with it, but I don't know if it's to the same capacity that we do. So when you're struggling, let them know that you don't. Heartbreaking, and it is exhausting emotionally, mentally, all the things. Voice journaling is fabulous. I wish I had known about voice journaling. I did not know about that then.
And I feel like too, and for a second, talk about what horrible advice people tell you when you're trying to conceive. Just relax.
Oh,
it will happen in God's timing. Yes, in God's timing, I recognize that, but
but at the same time, I'm a little mad at God.
I'm a little upset about this is not happening. Yeah. So that felt very dismissive.
Yeah.
You're young. After we lost our first child at 13 weeks, it just wasn't meant to be. Or why are you guys trying yet? Or, you're not getting any younger.
That biological clock is ticking. anything.
Or even if you have a child, the second child, people start quickly. I mean, I remember carrying Will out of the NICU and they're like, when are you going for a number 2? And I'm like,
girl,
pump those brakes.
Yes, I remember vividly because my second baby was COVID baby, so no visitors, which I was actually pretty cool with.
That's
I was here
advantages.
for it. We actually, yes, it was nice because I could actually get some rest in the hospital. But after Sydney was born, literally that night, afternoon, evening, whatever you want to call it, I had a family member say, okay, well, when are you going to have another one?
It's like...
And I'm over here literally holding my 6-hour-old newborn, freshly bleeding. And I'm like, I'm probably going to give my body a little break.
I mean, every orifice is leaking, hurting. I just went through this experience. And
even if I tried to get pregnant literally right now, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's physically not going to happen. And also, let me enjoy this child that I felt like I had to hang stars to get. Yes. Let me appreciate what honestly felt like a huge accomplishment.
It is.
It felt like I finally crossed the finish line of a marathon that lasted a year and a half for us.
It's isolating. It's hard. You feel like you're failing.
Yeah.
You can wear out a lot of your support in this. If you it's hard to unload on them constantly.
Yeah.
So that's why you said I love the groups.
Yeah.
Now I will put a disclaimer with the groups. Some people are going to be a little wild on those groups.
You got to watch them.
So you kind of need to identify me. I don't need to follow what Mary Jo says every single time.
I will tell you, there's a really, I love her so much. It's Megan Smalley on Instagram.
Oh, yes.
She runs Scarlet and Gold Shop down there. So literally all 3 of her boys are about the same ages as me and my girls.
I've seen them. They're the cutest.
Yes. Our kids are about 6 months apart, each of them. It's great. She went through exhaustive struggles. I want to say when her twins just turned 5, it took them 5 years to get pregnant with IVF. And they knew, I hate to say it like this, but I think she said pretty early on they knew IVF was their only way to. Now, she's never disclosed the diagnosis, and she does not have to. But we were walking through infertility at the time, and even though we don't know each other in real life, it was very comforting to be like, okay, not alone in this. She really did it. I've got somebody. She has a really good book called Give Grace that talks about her infertility journey. Mama's out there. Her page may just be very...
We'll link it in our show notes for sure.
And you may even scroll back to when she went through infertility. Also had to do infertility. Ironically, is also James.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
okay.
Look at that.
Look at her. I love the name.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And so in between being pregnant with the twins and having James, she also experienced a miscarriage.
So hard.
I remember following her journey and find out the gender. Unfortunately, somebody called her and they spilled the beans and it was... I think that really rocked her world, but she was transparent about it and transparent about her hurts.
Yeah.
And that was really refreshing. In this.
No. Even though it feels
very
that
isolating.
way when you're taking those ovulation tests, or if you're in IVF, you're getting the shots, you're doing the medicine, you're doing everything you physically can. And I think that's a lot to say too, with just in reality is some people are not going to show you their struggles when it's trying to conceive IVF. With us, not a lot of people know this, but my uterus had a septum in it.
Oh.
We did not know this, and that's why we miscarried with Ava. I had to go through 2 really hard surgeries to basically remove the septum.
Oh, gosh.
And ultimately, the surgeries led to scar tissue, which led to the complications with Will and James.
Got it.
So with Will, that's why my placenta went all crazy, and I had vasa previa, where, the traumatic birth episode, we'll talk more about that. And then that's ultimately from Will's C-section and all the surgeries why my placenta attached to my uterus with James, and I ended up with a hysterectomy. So there's a lot behind people. You could go on my Instagram and see a cute family picture, but you have no idea of those months that I cried to sleep, or I cried in the bathroom in my period, or I cried when I saw going out in public. I remember one time, it was around Christmas, and I was supposed to have had Ava by then. And I saw a mom with a baby girl. And
it was too much.
It was too much. And I broke down in the grocery store. And my parents were in town. And I remember I burnt the banana bread I was making too that day. And my dad's like, is this about the banana bread? And I was like, it's not, you know.
It's
and
not.
I was supposed to have a baby by now, even in my head. And so it's just giving yourself grace, voice journaling. If you need counseling to talk to someone for those coping skills.
It's hard.
Grounding
to have
yourself.
A safe place to talk about it.
Reach out. This is not easy, and no one expects you to handle this well because it's hard.
Well, and I've never lived up north, so I could be speaking out of turn. But I feel like, especially in the South too, when we talk about our infertility struggles, even with our parents, that didn't really talk about infertility or struggle with it, maybe to the degree we are now. I just remember, well, why do you have to take all that medicine? I get it. And I just remember thinking, well, I wish I knew, but Femera.
No.
I don't know why I'm taking 3 times the starting dose of Femera just to get my progesterone in a normal. I don't know. I wish I could tell you why my doctor is ordering HSG to figure out what's going on with my tubes.
Hello, HSGs, mamas. Ain't gonna lie.
It was not a pleasant experience.
Not pleasant. So if you don't know what that is, they basically...
Also known as a dye test.
They shoot dye through the fallopian tubes into like the uterus to get a picture. Basically,
to see if your tubes are open.
Trying to see what's going on, your anatomy. That's where they found my septum.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, no one prepared me for this. I went on my lunch break.
Oh, Sarah.
Okay, they said, it's going to be fine. I drove myself. They didn't. I know I have a friend who she thankfully had anesthesia for it. Okay, I got ibuprofen. And
you're going to share your story, and then I want to share mine because I think we both came at it from different perspectives, but had similar endings.
Okay, I was laying. I mean, the whole trying to conceive, the vaginal ultrasounds. Hello, uncomfortable, invasive. You're staring at it.
Yeah.
You're like, really?
Yeah.
This is going to happen, and they're probing inside you to see what's going on. You have to do multiple of those. Sometimes.
There is no modesty in infertility. And it's gone.
It's horrible. So then you have the HSG where they put like this balloon catheter thing in first for me, or like to push up the cervix.
Oh, I didn't have that.
Okay, hurts. Okay. Then shot up the dye.
Mm-hmm. I remember that vividly.
I was writhing in pain, just like, is it like screaming? I was like, is this going to be over? Okay, because I was on ibuprofen here. And I remember the nurse right before, I was like, is it going to hurt? And she's like, quick. And I knew from being a nurse, when you say that
oh, it's going to be unpleasant.
It's going to be bad. Yeah. And then they immediately saw the septum. And I remember it was the reproductive endocrinologist, and she was fabulous. She goes, oh, that's a doozy. And I was like, what's a doozy? What did you just see? And she was like, okay, this is not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So that was good. So I remember like shaking.
I had that too.
Driving home or driving to the work. Because that was my lunch break. I called my best friend at work. I was like, you need to come out to the parking lot. I was lost my mind. And she's like, you did on your lunch break? I was like, no one. So when you're going through these procedures or you're going through things, try to not do what I did and get transparency and be like, no, can I go back to work? Do what medicine? I was very trusting.
Yeah.
So that was my experience with HSG.
So mine was slightly different. And I give credit to my doctor's office because they were like, well, we're not going to put you under because it is a quick procedure. It's supposed to be quick. Like 10 to 15 minutes. So they're like, we're not going to put you under because you're also not having an incision done.
Yeah.
Because they explained it to me. It's very similar to when you get your annual.
Yep.
You know, you got your feet up in stirrups, all the things. And they said, but it can be painful. It can be stressful. We can, call you in one Xanax that you would take kind of the morning of.
I needed that. Was not there.
But they said, because I had never taken Xanax or anything like that before, and they had no idea how it would affect me if I would be drowsy, all the things, they said, you're going to have someone to drive you home. Well, again, we had not told our family we were dealing with infertility.
Yeah. And
my husband at that point was doing his internship for grad school, doing student teaching. So he couldn't leave. And I was like, it'll be fine. And I brought this on myself. Let me just make that very clear. My OB's office tried. Okay.
As mine was like, here's the ibuprofen, you'll be fine.
And so, they were like, well, if you change your mind, just let us know. And again, I worked in a hospital that it was going to be where I was getting my HSG at. So I had even talked to my boss. I'm like, well, why don't I just work the first half of the day?
And like just stroll over.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those, I knew I probably didn't want to come back after. My OB's office was like, no, you're going to be done for the day. Like
mine
mentally,
was like, you can go back and work.
I mean, my OB told me, he goes, you can. I don't know that I would recommend that.
I would not recommend it.
And so, same, because I was not in the headspace to do it by any stretch of the imagination, because you don't know what your results will be. Let me just throw that out there.
No, you do not. And it can be like me where you're like, can you even remove septum? Does this mean I can never have children?
Yeah.
Or they can say, it's perfect.
Yeah.
And you're like, I still don't know what's wrong with me.
So for me, I did not have the balloon, but from what I can remember, again, it's very much like your yearly exam. You're up in the stirrups. He did something like he clamped my cervix, I think, to hold it in place.
Yes.
And I will say I do have a semi-high pain tolerance. So that was uncomfortable to me. I was like, okay, I feel it. Doesn't feel great, but I'm okay. Like, I'm not writhing in pain by any stretch of the imagination. He goes, okay, we're going to insert the catheter, not a balloon, just the catheter tube into your cervix. It's going to feel like a bee sting. That's pretty accurate. That's what it felt like, was a bee sting on my cervix. And I was like, okay, that's uncomfortable, but like, again, I'm not writhing in pain. Like, I can get through this. And then he said, okay, we're about to push the die. That is when I nearly came off the table and punched him in the face because it hurt.
Yeah.
We did not know that my left tube was blocked.
And so that would be even more excruciating. Like with mine, with the septum, it couldn't get through. So it's like you're pounding this. I mean, and it's not
Think of it like a traffic jam on the interstate.
And like, here comes the 18-wheeler and just knocks them through because there's a blockage.
Yeah, unfortunately, it did not get rid of the blockage, which is part of the purpose of an HSG or dye test.
To clean it out,
is to clean it out. And so there's my OB. Here is the radiologist, looking at stuff on the screen. And they're like, okay, flip your hips this way. Like, they were trying their hardest to get it to dislodge.
And it wouldn't.
And it wouldn't go. So my OB and radiologist at that time just agreed that it was most likely air pockets in my tube. And we don't really know how they got there because I had no history of an abdominal trauma or abdominal surgery. It was just one of those things. But that being said, my right tube was fine.
Yeah.
Uterus was fine. My cervix was fine. My OB was like, well, why get pregnant on that right tube? Because mind you, I had been on Femera. I'd been on the correct dosage of Femera August, and I had that dye test done in January. So my progesterone had been where we needed it to be.
Yeah.
For 5 months. And so he did say, okay, well, the left tube is going to take out 6 months out of the year. That explains a lot, but we should still be able to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Off this right tube. And so that was in January. And so in February, they pulled my progesterone again. Levels were exactly where they needed it to be.
Did you take progesterone?
Of the Femera.
Okay.
The Femera is what boosted my progesterone.
Okay. I took progesterone, those suppositories.
Oh, God love you.
Not pretty.
So we did figure out that I ovulated on my right side on the even month.
Oh.
Because I was on so much Femera, I could feel myself ovulate.
Oh, wow.
I could just about dang tell you where that egg was.
Now, I will say you do learn your body, which is hard because you're getting hormones pumped, right? Or like you're doing it, but you will feel it and you'll just be like, it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So we also knew odd months it's a loss because it was a left tube. Oh, yeah. Right. I can remember in March of 2016, it was, my OB was basically like, okay, as a last-ditch effort, I'm going to pull your thyroid panel because otherwise we're getting very close to having to refer you out to an infertility specialist. That dang near broke me. And mamas, I say this because I never would have known, but I had hypothyroidism.
Yeah. And that's
I never would have known because all the few symptoms I had of it got excused away to other things, like heart palpitations.
Yeah.
I had a cardiologist tell me I had an arrhythmia several years prior to infertility.
You're like, oh.
So I'm like, it's an arrhythmia, blah, 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 whatever. Had struggled with some anxiety. Well, I'm so.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing some
And so I really just thought that, honestly, that was my career. And then even the cardiologist, I was dealing with terrible leg cramps. And he goes, well, you're a runner. You're going to deal with that. Just take some magnesium for it. Fine, because magnesium, he was like, it's not going to hurt you to take a magnesium supplement. Okay, fine. Well, then, lo and behold, I had hypothyroidism. All of that resolved, and I got pregnant in April.
Oh, my gosh.
So, mamas, ladies.
Check your thyroid.
Check your thyroid. And when I say thyroid, not just your TSH. Get the TSH pulled, but your T4 panel as well. And then the I think is what they call it.
Yep. And vitamin D, you can get that checked. And that could be primary care. And that could and there's ways for insurance and billing to say, I'm having some low energy, let's check this. I know I did that. I went to my PCP in Boston before. It was like a couple of months after the miscarriage because I went down Google's rabbit hole. Of course. And I was self-diagnosing myself with everything. And I will say I had to advocate for myself, and I referred myself to infertility specialist. Because my OB was very dismissive in Boston about you're young, it's a miscarriage, try again. Happen. So people, my husband says I go to extreme on a lot of things. So on this one, I did it to advocate for myself, and it worked out, and we found the uterus and the uterus septum. But advocate for yourself. You know your body. Yeah. Voice journaling. Find your support.
Yes.
Keep doing things that fill your cup.
Yeah.
Because this is so draining.
It is.
I know it's annoying for people to say take breaks, but if that break for you is to go for a walk, to watch your show, to kind of, if when your period's supposed to come, I would try to do something to distract myself, kind of.
I agree.
Because if you're sitting at home obsessing over it,
it's going to make it worse.
It's going to make it worse. And
especially if you're trying for your first child.
Yes, there's a lot of pressure there.
There's a lot of pressure there, but you also have somewhat more time freedom.
Yes.
To dabble in some hobbies.
Yeah.
So photography was one that I really got into during that time.
I started working out.
Yeah. Running was another one that I did.
Yeah.
And so just FYI, especially if you're trying for your first one and sitting at the house, like you mentioned, Sarah, dwelling on, is my period going to come or not? Or you're taking multiple day in anticipation.
Done it.
Get out of the house.
Yeah.
Get out of the house. Even if you're just driving around.
Go. Take a minute. And this is a PSA for just the public. Never okay just to ask someone if you're pregnant. When you're trying. You're going to have another kid.
Yeah.
You do not know if she was crying in the bathroom 2 seconds ago because she's just had a miscarriage. Yep. She's been trying for a year.
She has PCOS.
She can't have children. So we do not know
we don't know people's
stories. And so it's easy to look at them and think it's perfect. Yeah. But mamas, we see you. Yeah. We support you.
And your uterus is nobody else's business except for your mother and your OB.
Amen, sister.
Those are the only people who need to have any interest in your uterus.
Care for you, ladies. Yep. Till next time. Bye.
Right, bye.
Maternal mental health is as important as physical health. The Preview Alliance podcast was created for and by moms dealing with postpartum depression in all its variables, like anxiety, anger, and even apathy. Hosted by CEO, founder Sarah Parkhurst, and licensed clinical social worker Whitney Gay, each episode focuses on specific issues relevant to pregnancy and postpartum. Join us and hear how other moms have overcome mental health challenges, as well as access tips and suggestions on dealing with your own challenges as moms. You can also browse our podcast library and listen to previous episodes at any time. Please know you're not alone on this journey. We're here to help.